Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Waste Management Phoenix Open DFS Tactics show. Got a lot to get into. It's going to be a fun show. First full field premier event of this new look PGA Tour. I'm excited. It is a major-esque style field. 23 of the top 24 players in the OWGR are here. So it's going to be quite the tournament. Of course, it is the biggest spectacle in golf, beyond maybe the Masters. But it's a big party out in Scottsdale, Super Bowl week, Waste Management Phoenix Open. It's the place to be. But let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler and a much better DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This includes Twitter and Instagram, where I posted some research yesterday afternoon. 140 characters worth over on Twitter, and then expanded on that over on Instagram. So if you want to see that, give me a follow at those links down below. There is also a link to my Twitch channel. This is where I do all of my in-depth research during the week and as I go through my mixed condition model process whenever I stream as well. So if you want to see that, give me a follow over at Twitch. My betting card will also be out after the show this evening. It's a pretty big betting card. There are a lot of lines that I liked, from winners to top 20s, even a couple of parlays. So I am pretty heavy into the outright market or wager market this week at WMPO. So I want to hear from you all on that regard. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. In addition to your outright wagers, who are you gravitating towards in DFS? Who's your favorite 6K play, if any? Who are you fading? I've got two fades. That's probably going to surprise you, but I will give you my reasoning when we get there. So let's not delay it any further. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Waste Management Phoenix Open. And we're going to start over at Windfinder. And let me tell you, this is a pretty hectic wind forecast. It's changed a couple of times already today. As you see on for tomorrow, especially tomorrow morning, pretty moderate in terms of sustained winds in the 14, 15 mile an hour range, but gusts into the 30s or at 30 mile an hour. And then the gusts taper off, but it is a pretty steady sustained wind in the low teens throughout the day tomorrow. So for Thursday, it certainly looks like PM is getting the favorable portion of it, unless this forecast changes and this starts to creep into earlier in the day. Then it's pretty even. As you can see, they're projecting 8, 9 p.m., some wind gusts maybe into the mid-30s, but the same amount of sustained wind. So at least by the forecast at this moment, I'm going to give a slight favor to Thursday PM. However, when we look at Friday, it's a lot of the same. Medium or mediocre amount of sustained wind, 10 to 12, but gusts into the mid-20s early Friday morning. And then the best wind of all is Friday afternoon. So with that, if you combine the two looks, we've got a very scoreable situation here for the Friday afternoon. But the worst wind is Thursday morning. So those two kind of counteract each other. Whereas Thursday afternoon is pretty consistent in terms of wind. Now they do get a little bit more gusty in the morning wave on Friday, but this is a long-winded way of saying I just don't see much of an advantage for any kind of split. And again, this forecast has been a little hectic. That's why I haven't even filled out any of my lineups yet for DraftKings. I'm trying to get the most up-to-date information as possible, so I'll be waiting until the next update for Windfinder. That's going to be probably in about an hour to two here on the site. So it's going to be a late evening for me, but as of right now, considering this forecast, I don't see a favor. I don't see anything in terms of a favor for Thursday AM or Thursday PM for the entirety of the cut, because both days the afternoon looks to have the favor. So with that, we're going to go to Fantasy National, and with all of that wind in the forecast, I've went ahead and set all of my parameters and filters and whatnot to moderate and windy. So give these players a boost in your rankings or extra consideration, however you want to phrase it. These players have been the best in the wind since the start of 2022. Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Tony Finau, Keegan Bradley, Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Cameron Young, and Chris Kirk. Those have been the top 10. A little bit further on down, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Max Homa, Aaron Wise, Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, Tom Hoagie, Gary Woodland. So give these players a boost in your rankings. You can see all the way down to the top 30 here in Christian Bezuidenhout. So make sure you give those players a boost in your rankings. Conversely, give these players a downgrade in your rankings. Andrew Landry, Andrew Landry, Nick Watney, Jason Duffner, Danny Lee, Max McGreevy, Harris English, Kevin Tway, Ryan Brim, not too much further down here, Patton Gazire, Russell Knox, Joel Damon, Ricky Fowler hasn't been particularly good in the wind in 2022, or since the start of 2022. So give these players a downgrade in your rankings. And again, I don't see anything in terms of a favorable split. So this probably will be the week that you just pick the guys that you prefer and hope that they get a decent draw, because that forecast has changed twice already today. But let's move on to the mixed condition model that I've made for this week. And there was a lot of debate with myself on what metrics to use, what percentages and all that stuff. But you can see there's really only one metric that I've added a filter. Everything else is, as we talked about throughout the week, there's no specific filters for waste management. Hey, P, good evening. Hope all is well. Are you ready for your lineups and wagers and whatnot? Thanks for jumping in chat, as you are apt to do when you make the show. But with no easy or difficulty filter, no short or long course filter, I did not feel comfortable stretching all the way back to the beginning of 2022. So I've just gathered stats from this PGA Tour season, starting at the Fortinet. That means some players like Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, they have a very few amount of rounds. So Rory's performance at the CJ Cup is weighted far heavier than most other players because he hasn't played in 2023 on the PGA Tour. Shane Lowry's the same. Tommy Fleetwood's the same. This will be only my second time playing DFS for the Waste Management. I go every year. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I'm pretty jealous that you generally go to the Waste Management. I know it's a big party. It's a lot of fun. Although this year I imagine it's going to be just an absolute mess with the Super Bowl and Waste Management there this week. But yes, absolutely exciting to participate in DFS. Hopefully I will not let you down. But let's go through this mixed condition model here. And again, there's only one filter that I've used on any of these metrics. Otherwise, it's just back to the Fortinet. So we talked all week about how this is a ball striking course. So 15% strokes gained off the tee, 10% in strokes gained approach. I did want to split that out for a couple of different reasons. I think off the tee is going to be pretty important this week. We saw the added emphasis that it had last year alone. And I also wanted to see some different parts of off the tee, as we'll talk about here in a minute. So 15% in strokes gained off the tee, 10% in strokes gained approach, only 5% in strokes gained putting on fast Bermuda. These greens have been fast. They have been labeled or classified as Bermuda every single round going back to 2016, 15 even. So even though putting is probably not going to be the deciding factor, these greens are consistent enough that I did want to see who putts the best on fast Bermuda greens in general. So 5% there. 10% in bogeys avoided. And again, I just have a strong inclination that this is about bogeys avoided as opposed to birdies gained from what we saw in Microsoft Excel throughout the week. That was a big factor last week at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am and why I was so successful in DFS. I know a lot of people in the industry were looking at birdies or better gained because generally that tournament yielded much easier scoring. But with the wind last week at Pebble Beach, I was thinking it was going to play more difficult. I don't know if it's going to play more difficult than usual this week at the Waste Management, but I am pretty darn confident that it's going to be about bogey avoidance. So I've got 10% there. Not only that, it was, I think, the second most important factor in last year's mixed condition model of the metrics that I used for determining or correlating success of players and their form coming in. 10% in driving distance, and this is the part of the off the tee that I really wanted to separate. Fairways, gaining fairways here really doesn't matter. The rough is not penal. Now, if you are wayward on holes with water, that's a big deal, obviously. But in terms of your average hole here at the Waste Management, you're going to want distance as opposed to fairways. So while I do have 15% in off the tee, I really wanted to emphasize the players that just hit the ball far. Webb Simpson is positive in driving distance here at the Waste Management. He's never positive in distance anywhere. Corey Connors is the same. Sung Jae, not long off the tee. He's positive here. So I really wanted to emphasize distance, and therefore I've got 10% in driving distance. 10% in proximity, I mentioned on Monday evening. This might be a facet that I am weak on or incorrect. If the 150 to 175 proximity ends up being the most important, or even the 200 plus, which we saw throughout a few of the prior leaderboards that it was pretty darn important as well. If one of those ranges of proximity matter the most, then I'm going to be weak to it. But in general, almost every single proximity was positive or more important than the average full field course. These greens are slightly larger than the average PGA Tour green, so I'm thinking that total prox is going to be a bigger factor than some might think. So I've got 10% in proximity. I did nothing with par 3s. I've got 10% in all par 4s, 15% in 450 to 500 par 4s. I really, really, really emphasize this metric. We looked at it throughout the week in Microsoft Excel's just the enormous amount of correlation. The players that play these holes well and their success here at the Waste Management. All par 4s are going to be important, including the drivable par 4, the 400 to 450 par 4s, but throughout the week we saw just the overarching importance of this length of par 4s. So 15% there, and then finally 15% in par 5s, and every single par 5 here at TPC Scottsdale measures to this length on the scorecard. Now they will drop into the 500 to 550 from day to day, but every single par 5 here at the Waste Management Phoenix Open measures to this length on the scorecard, so 15% there. So that's a look at my mixed condition model. Again, places where I might be weak. Around the green. If around the green is more important than I'm thinking it's going to be this year. It has traditionally been positive or more important than the average full field course. I've just been really emphasizing the ball striking aspect of the course. If putting is a little bit more important, if distance isn't as important, or if there's a specific proximity, I mean, there's a few things that could be that I could be weak to, but that is what I am willing to lose to, at least in terms of a mixed condition model. And when we go to my rankings, you'll see that a lot of guys are rising in my rankings just due to the fact that I've put so much emphasis on distance as opposed to short game. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move on over to Microsoft Excel and the reveal of my rankings. The top 10 for the Waste Management Phoenix Open this week. I have Jon Rahm, Max Homa, Brian Harman, Sungjae, Xander, Rory McIlroy, Patrick Cantlay, Keegan Bradley, Tony Finau, and 10th is Ricky Fowler. Let's talk about Ricky, shall we? He's played very well here. He's a former champion, I believe in 2019 or 2018. He's been pretty good off the tee. He's been very good at the specific length of par 4s here at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Really, his only terrible stat has been putting on fast Bermuda greens. And again, with it only being 5%, he's not getting docked too much. I think this sets up pretty well for Ricky this week. I'm curious to see how he does. Now, the wind is going to be an issue because he hasn't played well in the wind in the past year. But at 8%, the former course history or whatever, he's top 20 in strokes gained approach in this loaded, and I mean loaded field this week. He avoids bogeys. He's top 25 in driving distance. There's a lot to like with Ricky analytically. So we'll cover that part of my top 10 right out of the way. Otherwise, probably the only surprise might be Brian Harman, but remember, he had an enormous fall. He was the number 1 strokes gained total player for the fall. So a lot of his ranking is coming in that alone. You see, off the tee, he's been very good, but it is mostly in fairways as his distance is lacking. So I'm a little bit lower on Brian Harman. Again, he's being really elevated by the fact that I'm only going back to the Fortinet and not all of 2022. But again, top 5 in par 4s, top 3 in bogey avoidance so far this PGA Tour season. Not to mention top 15 in the specific length of par 4s and par 5s. There's a lot to like with Brian Harman. I'm just a little wary of his lack of distance, but it hasn't prevented him from playing well here in the past. Having said that, this is the most loaded the Waste Management Phoenix Open has ever been in terms of a star-studded field. So I will be interested to see how Brian Harman handles that. Otherwise, elsewhere in my top 10, I mean, Jon Rahm, Max Homa, Sungjae, he's always been a bogey avoider or a grinder, so anytime bogey avoidance matters, he tends to rise in those rankings or in those metrics and whatnot. He's also top 15 in the par 5s, top 20 in the par 4s. Xander, one of the best players historically in the last 5 years here at WMPO. Patrick Cantlay. There might be a name that you are not seeing. And we'll get to him whenever we go to the price board. But I have a couple of pretty big fades this week. Pretty big fades. And those will be players that I just lose to if they play well. So let's go ahead and look at said price board. We'll sort on column E, largest to smallest. And yes, don't mind me as I talk to myself. All right. So in the 10Ks, we have 5 players. Jon Rahm at 11,000. Rory, 10.8. Scotty Scheffler, 10.3. Tony Finau, 10.1. And Xander, 10,000 even. You can see I'm very, very high on all 5 of these players. Jon Rahm, number 1. Xander, 5th. Rory, 6th. Tony Finau, 9th. Scotty, 14th. I mean, there's all of these players have their reasons to be used. Scotty Scheffler, your defending champion. He's number 3 and off the tee. Now, the specific length of par 4s and par 5s, he's struggled a little bit this year, at least this PGA Tour season. He's also struggled with some proximity. So that's why he is being hurt. That's why he is the lowest rated of the 5. But I don't think he's a bad play at all, especially since he is the second lowest projected owned of the 10Ks. Rahm, very expensive, but very worth it. Number 1 and off the tees, number 2 in par 4 performance. Now, the thing with Rahm, generally he putts slower greens better. So if these greens are indeed sped up, he could have a little bit of an issue. I don't think I would allow that to deter me from using Jon Rahm. Rory, again, what's there to say? He doesn't have a bad stat at all. This 70th is his worst statistic by almost 30 spots. He is ranked 44th in something else, but 11th and off the tee, 10th in the particular length of par 5s, almost top 10 in distance, top 25 in proximity. I think Rory's going to play very, very well this week. He's only played this event once in the past 5 years, but it was a top 15. Tony Finau. Now, he's the one player in the 10Ks that I might be a little bit shy about because he has not played this event up to what you would think Tony Finau standards. Now, look, everything analytically seems like it would line up. I mean, he's rated 2nd in Fantasy National just by pure numbers. Top 10, 11th and off the tee, top 5 in strokes gained approach. He's top 10 in proximity, 7th in par 4s. There's a lot to like with Tony Finau. I am still a little bit concerned about his prior course performance. So in the 10Ks, I am probably going to say Xander, my number 1 player in the 10Ks. And yes, he is the most projected owned player in the 10Ks, but he just loves the waste management. There's nothing wrong with him analytically either. He's not been the best at par 5s, but he's definitely capable of scoring on par 5s. He just hasn't this PGA Tour season. Now the par 4s he's been demolishing. He's also very good, or he's been very good with his irons and bogey avoidance. So I'm going to go with Xander, number 1, even though he is the most projected owned player in the 10Ks, a lot of that being his prior course performance. Number 2 in the 10Ks, I'm actually going to go Scotty Scheffler, a lot of that being the fact that he is the 2nd lowest projected owned in the 10Ks. So I'm going to go Xander, number 1, Scotty Scheffler, number 2. Probably Jon Rahm, number 3, Rory 4th, and Tony Finau 5th. I am a little hesitant on Tony Finau. It's not a full fade, but I am just a little bit concerned about his prior form here at the waste management. So if I don't use Tony Finau, I won't be upset about it. But that means he might be a player that I will lose to. If he fits in a team, great, I'll use him. If not, I'm not going out of my way to try to use him. Let's move to the 9Ks. The 9Ks, we have Max Homa, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Hideki, Victor Hovland, Sung Jae, Tom Kim, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Well, we see one player in the 9Ks whose ranking just doesn't match anybody else's. And it's very surprising. It was very surprising to me. But look at Justin Thomas, especially in terms of the analytics. Now, it's a very, very dangerous game that I'm playing here because he is the strokes gained total leader in the past 5 years here at the Waste Management. But since the start of this PGA Tour season, his off-the-tee numbers have been pretty bad. He's not been very good at the specific length of par 4s here at the Waste Management. He's also not been avoiding bogeys very well. So when 3 of the biggest metrics that I'm focused on this week are red, you're going to drop quite precipitously in my rankings. Now, his distance has always been there, but that is the only non-red stat that he has in my mixed condition model. Oh, I'm sorry, strokes gained approach is pretty middling. But distance is the only non-red stat in my mixed condition model this week. So I'm just full fading Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas will be a player that I lose to. And if he plays well, there's absolutely every reason to believe that he'll play well. That's just who I'm choosing to lose to this week. He can't cover every single base. And the reason I'm able to full fade Justin Thomas are players like Max Homa, who is about 0.5% projected more owned, number 2 in my rankings. He's been demolishing the length of these par 4s. Look at his iron play. For as bad as it was at the end of the PGA Tour season last year and at the beginning of this fall, he's really, really stepped it up. He is 6th so far this PGA Tour season in strokes gained approach, again, in this loaded field. Proximity, top 20, 16th. Par 4 performance in general, top 15. He's been good on fast Bermuda greens in the past 2 years. I really like Max Homa this week. He's very expensive at $9,900, but I think he's going to be very well worth it. Colin Morikawa is the most projected owned player. He's played this event 1 time. It was a top 25. To be fair, he is 9th off the tee, but all of it is, again, in fairways. So that gives me a little bit of pause on Colin Morikawa, but what's saving him is the fact that he's been 5th in proximity, and I think just total prox is going to be a big deal. He's been 7th in irons, 4th in the specific length of par 5s here. A lot to like with Colin Morikawa. And if you're getting the most projected owned player at 18%, that is not heavy heavy chalk for the most projected owned player. Your fellow contestants are going a lot of different directions. So there are opportunities here to make some pretty unique optimal lineups. But I really like Colin Morikawa. I love Patrick Cantlay this week. He's played this event 1 time. It was last year. He finished runner-up. Essentially top 25 in both off the tee and the specific length of par 4s. Driving distance, he moves it enough. He's top 20 in proximity. Top 15 in par 4s. I love Patrick Cantlay this week. Not terribly concerned about his free agency and equipment, if you will. He played pretty darn well at the Tournament of Champions. I think he'll be fine. Don't overlook Hideki. He is a 2-time former winner here at TPC Scottsdale. Now, the off the tee has been pretty bad, yes, but the course form is there. He's only at 12%, which is pretty middling. I like Hideki quite a bit, and anytime you can get Hideki not heavy red and putting, you gotta think about it. You gotta think about it quite heavily. So don't sleep on Hideki. Victor is fine. He's very, very unique. A lot of that because he has not generally played this event well. I think it does suit him, though, with no around the green metrics in here. Now, his irons haven't been good, so there is reason to be cautious. But I think this tournament should set up pretty well for Victor Hovland, especially since he played so well at Pebble Beach, and that shouldn't have been a tournament that fit him very well, considering all the around the green. But he played extremely well last week, so if you're willing to take that gamble, if you're willing to look at the analytics as opposed to the prior course form, you're going to be gaining a whole lot of leverage on your fellow contestants with Victor Hovland. Sungjae, fine. He's the second most projected own. I'm going to be using a whole lot of Sungjae. He loves this place. We talked about him in the reveal of the top 10. A bogey avoider, a grinder, loves the length of par 4s and 5s. Top 20 off the tee. Enough distance. It's not long, but it's enough distance. I like Sungjae. Tom Kim, I am actually going to full fade this week. And Justin Thomas and Tom Kim are going to be the two players that I will lose to. But I'm going to full fade Tom Kim. A lot of that being in the fact that these par 5s you absolutely have to take advantage of, and he hasn't, at least this PGA Tour season. And for as good as he has been off the tee, again, it's more so in fairways. He's not long. He is not long off the tee. So if his irons, which have been stellar, if they falter just enough, especially in this wind, I got some concerns. Because he's not the best off the tee as it is anyway. Like Colin Morikawa's 9th off the tee with about the same amount of distance. He's slightly longer than Tom Kim. Not much, but slightly longer. But he is drastically better off the tee than Tom Kim. So that means Tom Kim's going to have to hit almost every fairway since he is not long. Tom Kim's a fade for me. And then finally in the 9Ks, Matt Fitzpatrick. I actually like Fitzpatrick quite a bit, even though he was questionable last week with that neck injury. He missed the cut at the beach. Off the tee is fine. Maybe even good. Top 20 in par 5 performance as well. And he's also a bogey avoider. He's a grinder. So I like Fitzpatrick, and a lot of that being at the 5% here in his uniqueness. So in the 10Ks, I think I have to say Cantley's my number 1 in the 9Ks, even though he's probably going to be pretty chalky. I do like Morikawa. I don't like his ownership, but I do like Morikawa. I love Max Homa. I love Sungjae. And I'm going to fade Tom Kim, and I'm going to full fade Justin Thomas. And those are two players that I'll lose to this week. Let's move to the 8s. We have Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth, Sam Burns, Sahith Theegala, Terrell Hatton, Taylor Montgomery, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, and Ricky Fowler. Well, in the 8Ks, your fellow contestants seem to be ignoring this range, with the exception of Cameron Young, and I understand it. Ball striking course, off the tee, mandated course. Got to think about Cameron Young, 17th in off the tee, 6th in distance, which is off your screen, I know, but 6th in distance. He's also 20th in strokes gained approach. There's a lot to like here with Cameron Young. However, I am a little bit concerned about his bogey avoidance. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to fade him, but if there's a reason to get away from Cameron Young, I'm going to use it because of this bogey avoidance. He has been going out and getting the birdies as opposed to avoiding the bogeys. And his performance on Fast Bermuda in his short PGA Tour career hasn't been the strongest. But there is a lot to like here. 6th in distance. The irons are fantastic. The length of par 4s he demolishes. He's good off the tee, great off the tee even. I really like Cameron Young. I'm completely off of Jordan Spieth. Sahith Theegala, he finished 3rd here last year. We know he likes the course. For as much as the ratings say he is really bad off the tee, I think this course does fit Sahith Theegala pretty well because this rough is not penal. You see in distance, I mean, he's not the longest, but he's not short. He's not short, top 50. That means he's been very, very wayward off the tee. So if he just dials that in a little bit, I think he'll be fine. 7.5%. I'd be pretty excited about that. The length of par 4s, very, very good. Top 25 in approach. Top 20 as well in bogey avoidance. I think Sahith Theegala sets up pretty well here. Terrell Hatton always seems to be forgotten in some of these bigger contests. But he has played TPC Scottsdale very, very well. He's very good off the tee, and he's got distance for off the tee. He's 32nd in distance, 33rd in total off the tee. So he has plenty of distance. Hey, Joey, thanks for jumping in chat. Are you ready for the Waste Management? Do you have all your wagers and lineups set? But thanks for jumping in chat. But again, like just coming back to Terrell Hatton, he always gets overlooked. So don't overlook Terrell Hatton. I think he's going to be very, very serviceable. I am very, very cautious on Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood. I know they've been playing elsewhere overseas. They just haven't played on the PGA Tour in 2023. I'm especially more concerned about Shane Lowry, even though Fleetwood is rated lower. I'm more concerned about Shane Lowry with the fact that he's just not been good at these par fives, and you have to take advantage of these par fives. You just do. Now, Tommy Fleetwood, he's not been avoiding the bogeys this PGA Tour season again, but it's only 2 tournaments, and the proximity hasn't been good in his 2 tournaments. So I just want to get a little bit more data on Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood before I am ready to invest. So if you want to say that these are 2 more players I'll lose to, I'll accept that. It's just I'm not crazy about the idea of using either of these guys, especially since I'm so high on Ricky Fowler. Sam Burns has not played this event very, very well at all. We've talked about it quite surprisingly with these being fast Bermuda greens. You would think about Sam Burns, but he's only 1 for 4 in making the cut here at the Waste Management. Now, the one cut he did make was top 25, but his irons have not been very good this PGA Tour season. His proximity has been atrocious. Might actually be one of the worst. 131. I think he actually might be the worst in proximity. Yeah, 131, the worst. He's been the worst total prox player so far this PGA Tour season. But he is the number 1 player on fast Bermuda greens. So if you think the irons come back, then Sam Burns is going to be a very good choice. And I'm just, that's really, really tough for me to get behind, considering I like Tagala, I like Hatton, and I really, really like Ricky Fowler. Taylor Montgomery's fine. He's rated very, very high, top 15 in all 3 of these important stats. Now, his irons have been suspect, at least, in comparison to the rest of this loaded field. And while he has been good on Bermuda, he has been mostly POA putting. So we'll see. He is number 1 on par 4s, and that's very, very important. And his proximity, again, correlating with the approach, has been pretty bad. So I think Montgomery's fine, but I wouldn't rush to use him. Let's move to the upper 7s. Take a look at Keegan Bradley again, number 2 and number 3 in the length of the specific, in the specific length of par 4s and par 5s. Now, yes, it's Keegan Bradley. He has the potential to go full Keegan Bradley at a moment's notice, but his putting has been pretty superb lately. Now, I think it's going to fall apart. I would think it would be on Bermuda greens, but until it does fall apart, I'm willing to ride the hot hand, especially since he is, again, projected at sub 10%. He's been very good at par 4s in general. Prox, driving distance is fine, and he's a scrambler, or not a scrambler, he's a grinder. 11th in bogey avoidance. I really, really like Keegan Bradley this week. Take a look at Alex Noren. Noren generally plays this event very, very well. So take a look at Alex Noren. And then somebody else that I'm really, really high on is K.H. Lee. And I talk about him, anytime I talk about K.H. Lee, I mention that I feel like I can't narrow him down. But he finished tied for second 2 years ago here. And he was, I think, a top 35 last year. So he's played the Waste Management Phoenix Open pretty darn solid. And we see off the tee, respectable. Very good at the specific length of par 4s. His irons have been very good. And his proximity has been elite. Third among this loaded field. And again, this could be where I am incorrect. If a specific length of proximity matters, then I've got KH Lee rated too high. But it kind of goes hand in hand. KH Lee will be one of the players that I lose to if he doesn't play well. Kind of the inverse of Justin Thomas and Tom Kim. So I really like KH Lee in the upper 7s. He's getting some love as well. But the most chalky play in the upper 7s is Corey Connors. Okay. It's really, really tough for me to back a 16% projected owned Corey Connors, especially since he is, I mean, he's good. He's in the top 30 of my rankings, but it's not like he's top 10. And Corey Connors, I can't say that it's a full fade because I do want to use some Corey Connors, a lot of it being around the iron play, the proximity, which I think is going to be very important. But 15, almost 16% is a lot of chalk to have to eat. So I don't know how I feel about using a whole lot of Corey Connors. Let's move to the lower 7s. Let's take a look at a few names here. Keith Mitchell at 7,400. We talked about Brian Harman. I think he's a little bit overrated just due to the fact that he had a monster fall. But take a look at Keith Mitchell coming off a very, very good Pebble Beach, which I thought he would play particularly well. The more difficult it gets, the better Keith Mitchell is. With all this wind, I can see it playing a little bit more difficult. He's played okay here, but he's number 2 off the tee. He's number 10 in driving distance, so he has the off the tee game to contend here. Now his irons have been mediocre at best, but everything else has been, solid to elite. Loves the length of the par 5s. He's good at the length of the par 4s. Take a long look at Keith Mitchell. Now he won't be unique by any means, but I do think he'll be serviceable. A player in the upper 7s that I really, really like, the rankings aren't going to show it because he's never played here. I like Taylor Pendrith a lot this week. He's never played here, so I don't think... I think this sets up very well for him in his game, being off the tee centric, top 20. He demolishes this length of par 5s. Now the irons have been terrible, and I don't think he is that bad of an iron player. I just don't. I think he's better than this. So I'm investing in the off the tee form, current form, and banking on the approach getting better. The approach and the proximity are kind of going hand in hand with that. But I am investing in the narrative of off the tee for Taylor Pendrith at 7%. I think it's going to be very, very useful for you. Gary Woodland's a former champion here. Anytime you got to think about distance and or long courses, think about Gary Woodland. JT Poston has played this event very, very well. He's getting a lot of love. I don't know if I would go as far to say 13%, but I can understand it. 7,200, take a very, very long look at Wyndham Clark. A long look at Wyndham Clark. I really like him for a lot of the same reasons I like Taylor Pendrith. Off the tee centric, 25th, or top 25. Look at his performance in the specific length of holes here at the Waste Management. Top 10 in both of the par 4s and the par 5s. He is number 1 in distance as well. So there's a lot to like with Wyndham Clark. He's not a bad putter on fast Bermuda either. So he doesn't have any red stats. Look across. No red stats. I'll highlight that row for you. None of them. None of them are red. I like Wyndham Clark a lot. 5.5%. That's another player like KH Lee that I'll lose if he doesn't play well. Joel Damon is the number 1 analytic player when I ran the mixed condition model in Fantasy National. He's never played this event very well. Now, again, like I said, the analytics love him. He's top 15 off the tee, top 10 in the length of par 4s, top 20 in the length of par 5s. But just like Brian Harmon, he has had a monster fall. And he is more so the fairway finding as opposed to the distance in terms of off the tee. This is a classic example of if you're going with the analytics versus you're going with the course form. I think Joel Damon would be useful. I think it'd be wise to use a little bit of Joel Damon, but I would not invest heavily because he has shown year over year he just does not like this course. Elsewhere in the low sevens, you can take a look at Adam Hadwin. He's played here pretty well in his career, but he's just never been an off-the-tee guy. So his irons have to be especially dialed in. And with the extra wind this week, that gives me a little bit of pause. He is a grinder, so there's something to look at there. But he has played this event well. Kurt Kitayama coming off a very, very successful Pebble Beach minus Sunday. There's a lot to like here as well. Length of the par 5s, which you have to take advantage of. He's top 20 in distance, top 15 in proximity. I like Kurt Kitayama a little bit as well in the lower sevens. So that's a look at that portion of the price board. In the 6Ks, your fellow contestants are going a couple of different places. 10% at Hayden Buckley, and yes, I get it. I love it. He's fifth just by the analytics. He's only played this event one time, so don't get too caught up in this course value. Third in off the tee. Fifth in the specific length of par 4s. 11th in the specific length of par 5s. He, just like, who was it up here? Just like Wyndham Clark. Hayden Buckley does not have a red statistic at all across all of them that I've brought in this week. With that said, Buckley might be a fade for me if he is this darn chalky in the 6Ks. That means if your fellow contestants are indeed coming into the 6Ks, they're more than likely coming to Hayden Buckley, maybe one other player. I really like Hayden Buckley, but man, that is a lot of chalk for a 6K play. Your fellow contestants also gravitating towards Johnny Vegas. Look at his form here at the Waste Management. It's been very, very good. Anytime length matters, or off the tee for that matter, you got to think about Johnny Vegas. The hesitation with Johnny Vegas, he's still coming off that injury. Yes, he played at the American Express, but he's still dealing with that injury. He has not been good at the length of the par 4s so far this PGA Tour season, and he's not been avoiding bogeys very well this PGA Tour season. I think he's a worthwhile investment if you're coming down into the 6Ks once or twice, but I wouldn't go overboard on Johnny Vegas. Let's look at maybe a couple of other players here. Take a good look at Emiliano Grillo this week. Oh shoot, that's Kevin Kisner. Don't look at Kevin Kisner. I do not recommend Kisner at all. Take a look at Emiliano Grillo. Off the tee is solid. It's not great. It's just solid. Now, he will definitely have to be better at the length of the par 5s. But just like other players that I've been highlighting, he's a grinder. He avoids bogeys. His distance is fine. His proximity's been good. Take a look at Emiliano Grillo at 6,700, especially since he is half the ownership of Johnny Vegas at the same price. I also don't hate Stefan Jaeger for a couple of different reasons. He's been very good at the par 5s, or at the length of the par 5 so far this PGA Tour season, which you have to take advantage of here at the Waste Management. So I do like that. Now, he's been pretty bad at total proximity. So I'm going to go with the par 5s, thinking that, the bogey avoidance will help him out as well. I don't hate Stefan Jaeger. I wouldn't rush to use him. I don't hate it. The last name that I'm going to throw out for you all in terms of a 6K play is take a look at 6,300. And like I mentioned last week, it's only if you're really trying to squeeze in a stars and scrubs type deal. Take a look at Kevin Tway. He's been decent enough at this tournament. He is fourth fourth in this, again, loaded field at the specific length of par 5s here, which you have to take advantage of. He's also got the distance. Somehow, because Kevin Tway's never really been about distance, but so far on this PGA Tour season, he is 16th in distance. So something could have changed. If this is a new Kevin Tway, then we'll have to reevaluate. But I think Kevin Tway might be serviceable if you're trying to squeeze in a Stars and Scrubs type lineup. So those are my recommendations for DFS this week. Let's start building some lineups. And we're going to start, as we always do, with tiers. So in tier 1, we have Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Scottie Scheffler. You know, honestly, I kind of like Scottie Scheffler here. I think he's probably going to be the most unique. He's the defending champion. I like Scottie Scheffler quite a bit in tier 1. I think Jon Rahm would be a wise choice as well. Not to say that I hate Rory, it's just I'm probably going to try to take the uniqueness here in Scottie Scheffler, knowing that I'm probably going to take some chalk elsewhere in some other tiers. Tier 2, we have Tony Finau, Xander, Max Homa, Justin Thomas, and Patrick Cantlay. Like I mentioned, probably going to be taking some chalk somewhere in these tiers. It's probably going to be here. I think I'm going to go Xander. I love Patrick Cantlay. If you are a big believer in the course form, don't overlook Justin Thomas. I think Finau's out in terms of tiers. I also really like Max Homa. I think it's between one of these three for tier 2, Xander, Homa, and Cantlay. I think I'm going to take Xander, but I don't hate the other two at all either. And Justin Thomas is fine if you want to play on the prior course performance. I think Tony Finau is a pretty clear 5th in tier 2. Tier 3, Colin Morikawa, Hideki, Victor Hovland, Sungjae, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Ooh, that's pretty tough. Again, I think Colin Morikawa is probably the best choice. He is the most chalky player, at least in terms of projected ownership for classic lineups. Sungjae is also going to be pretty popular for good reason. I think it's probably, for me, it's probably Sungjae. I really like Colin Morikawa. Don't overlook Hideki. I know the withdrawal risk is there. Don't overlook Hideki. He's a 2-time winner at this event. Back-to-back winner in 2015 and 16, I think. Maybe 16 and 17. He plays this event very, very well. So don't overlook Hideki. I think he'd be fairly unique in Tier 3 as well. Tier 4, Tom Kim, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth, Sam Burns, Sahith Theegala, Tyrrell Hatton, and Shane Lowry. I think it's a 2-man race in Tier 4. I love Tyrrell Hatton. He always gets overlooked. I think he's going to be very, very good. I also don't hate Sahith Theegala. And the main reason why I'm highlighting these two, I think Cameron Young is going to be so darn chalky that you need to find your uniqueness, especially since I'm going very chalky in Tier 2 and probably chalky in Tier 3 with Sungjae. So I'm gonna highlight Sahith Theegala or Tyrrell Hatton. For me, I'm probably going to go Tyrrell Hatton, although Sahith Theegala has the higher upside. Like I mentioned last week with Spieth and Hovland, I think I think Hatton is probably the more consistent play. I think Theegala is the higher upside. If you can afford to take chalk, I would take Cameron Young, but there's enough reason to be wary of Cameron Young as well. So I'm going to take Tyrrell Hatton, but I think it's one of those three in Tier 4. Tier 5, we have Taylor Montgomery, Tommy Fleetwood, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, Siwoo Kim, Billy Horschel, and Keegan Bradley. I like Taylor Montgomery quite a bit. Ricky kind of screaming at me. But I think the best play is probably going to be Keegan Bradley, because he's played this event just as well as Ricky has, even though he hasn't won it. Now, the putting could fall off a cliff at any point, yes. But Ricky hasn't been very good on fast Bermuda greens the past 2 years either. Billy Horschel's fine, I suppose. But give me Keegan Bradley in tier 5. I also like Taylor Montgomery. And I like Ricky this week, I do. Tier 6, we have Trey Mullinax, Kurt Kitayama, Taylor Moore, Andrew Putnam, Harris English, Francesco Molinari, and Webb Simpson. Well, I've really only talked about one player in this whole group, and it's Kurt Kitayama. So I think I would go there. Although, I could probably see a Webb Simpson. He's played well here, even though distance is not his thing. He's just played well here. Mullinax, So yeah, in tier 6, I'm probably going to go either Kitayama or Webb Simpson. I'll go Kitayama. But I'm not in love with it. There's not a lot I like in tier 6, to be honest with you. All right. Let's move to making some classic lineups here. And if we're going to try and generate these chalky lineups your fellow contestants are making, we're going to have to use the first and second most projected owned players. So it looks like if your fellow contestants are going into the 6Ks, it is Xander Schauffele, if I could talk. And they are backing Xander up with Colin. And as we looked at as we saw on the price board, Hayden Buckley is getting a lot of love at 68 at 9.9%. The other, or if they're not bottoming out at Hayden Buckley, it's JT Poston. But I'm going to try to just use Hayden Buckley. Your fellow contestants have 7,800 per. They're probably dropping into the 8Ks. Maybe getting Cameron Young, although it is pretty expensive. But I think they're going to be able to do it. You have a 7,400 in Keith Mitchell, 73 JT Poston. Let's go with Keith Mitchell. Now I'm going to use the 7,200 Brendan Steele, although JT Poston would be a little bit more chalky, but that's a 14% match in a GPP, and with the amount of players, the amount of contestants that are going to be in these, that's pretty chalky. You got to think about this in terms of a major, because this is a major style field. So my guess is a lot of your fellow contestants are going to be building a balanced-ish lineup like that. If they are not going into the 6Ks, if they are indeed bottoming out at, say, a JT Poston and a Keith Mitchell, then, again, I'm just going to use Colin Morikawa because he's the most projected on player. There's a lot of different places they could go. Now they go Sungjae. Now they have 8,200 per player. Corey Connors at 77, and then 8,700 is Jordan Spieth, who's not getting a whole lot of love at all. Let's see. If we drop Sungjae 92 to 9,000 Fitzpatrick, so they could go maybe Cameron Young. Well, 9,000 Fitzpatrick. Shucks. Maybe they're coming off of Mitchell. Maybe they're coming off of Poston. Let's see. You got Poston. You've got Brendan Steele. I don't want to use the same names. It looks like that's what is being gravitated towards. They might come off of Colin, I guess. Go Patrick Cantlay. This is JT Poston. And then you go Cameron Young. And 9,200 is Sungjae, yeah. So a different look at a balanced-ish lineup. That's 14.5% projected owned if your fellow contestants are trying to not go into the 6Ks. That's another look at a potential lineup, fairly balanced. So to combat that, you're going to want to go stars and scrubs, I think, this week. I think that is going to be the play if you're wanting uniqueness. If you're wanting that huge, or you want the potential to have that huge top end winning lineup. And so because of that, I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler. Now, my number 1 player in the 10Ks is Xander, but he's pretty darn chalky. Number 2 player in the 10Ks is Scotty Scheffler. The relative, again, it's relative, lack of ownership compared to the other players in the 10K. Defending champion, I don't think he's going to win again this year, but you know he's played well here and he likes the course. I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler, and I'm going to back it up with Max Homa. I'm going to try to get as much value up in the 10Ks as I can, because I'm not afraid to drop into the 6Ks. I don't know if I'm willing to do 2 6Ks, although this is a week you might have to if you want to be super ultra unique. And in the 6Ks, you know, I mentioned Emiliano Grillo, who I don't hate at all. Somebody else to take a look at, Luke List. This is a ball striker's course. Luke List is the definition of a ball striker. He can't putt to save his life. But when he does, he won the Farmers. But, I mean, Luke List, top 5 in off the tee. He loves the length of the par 4s. He's 4th in distance. There's a lot to like with Luke List. So I'm going to try and make this team with only 1 6K. Might have to go with 2. But you wouldn't have to go deep into the 6Ks. Gosh dang it. You won't have to go deep into the 6Ks, the second 6K. But, you know, you can do 2 lower 7s and a mid here. We look at the lower 7s. I mentioned Joel Damon. I'm a little concerned about the former course performance. The analytics really like him. Wyndham Clark. I really like Wyndham Clark this week. I'll throw him in there. Now we're at $78.50 per player. So, you know, you can take your pick. You can maybe squeeze in a Ricky Fowler, a Taylor Montgomery, a Terrell Hatton. I'm going to use K.H. Lee. He's a little bit more chalky than some of these other players. But now I have 8,200. That's Shane Lowry, if you're along those lines. I don't think I'm quite there. I'm going to use Ricky. I think this is a good setup for him. That's a sub 10% lineup with Scheffler and Homa, who's already won twice. You've got K.H. Lee, who contends out of nowhere, seemingly. And you got 2 very, very speculative big bombers on a course that demands length, or rewards length, I should say. It doesn't demand it. It rewards length. And putting's not the biggest deal. I've been gravitating to, you know, that kind of lineup. 2 10Ks or maybe a 10 and a 9 and, you know, trying to squeeze an 8. If you are indeed willing to use a double 6K, I've given you the name Luke List. I've given you Emiliano Grillo. I also mentioned Kevin Tway at 6,300. If you really want to squeeze in, you know, like a John Rahm. Again, I'm a little nervous about Tony Finau, but if you want, you can go like a John Rahm, Tony Finau, and come all the way down to a Kevin Tway. I don't necessarily hate that. I wouldn't use Kevin Tway if I didn't have to. But if you're going to try to squeeze in a Rahm Finau, a Rahm Rory, a Rory Scheffler, I could see it. And then fill in the rest in here as you see fit. Maybe you can try to squeeze in a Terrell Hatton. And you got 7,100 per. Depends on how comfortable you are with using 2 10Ks. Or 2 10Ks, 2 6Ks. If you're not, you can go Kitayama. And again, at 7,200 is Wyndham Clark. We've used him, maybe Brendan Steele. I actually don't hate Garrick Higo either for the same reasons. Distance and all that. But I'll use Wyndham Clark since I'm very, very high on him. And there's a sub 8% lineup. Granted, you're using Kevin Tway. It's going to be pretty damn unique. That's a sub 8% lineup that you're squeezing in a Rahm and a Finau. Terrell Hatton, who is always undervalued in these big DFS GPPs. That's another lineup I could see gravitating towards. Last idea, and I'll do a double 6K in case you're comfortable with it. I used Luke List already once, so I'm going to go with Emiliano Grillo, and I do like Johnny Vegas. Again, I'm a little hesitant because he is coming off that injury from the fall, but I do like Johnny Vegas. This course should set up well for him. He's played well here in the past, so I'll give it a shot. Otherwise you could go, again, a Luke List in Vegas, a Luke List in Grillo. I mean, if you're not afraid of the chalk of Hayden Buckley, I would strongly gravitate or recommend you go Hayden Buckley. But I'm going to try to stay somewhat unique. I use John Rahm. I would use probably John Rahm in this, but we haven't used Rory yet. So yes, let's try to squeeze in a Rory lineup here. We'll go Rory, Patrick Cantlay. And I still have 8,200 per player. I would venture that Taylor Pendrith's going to have a pretty good tournament. 8,900's Cameron Young. I mean, that's right at 10%. You got Rory, Patrick Cantlay, Cameron Young, Pendrith, very, very speculative, but again, along the same lines. It's an off the tee play like Luke List. It's just a ball striker play. Grillo in Vegas, 2 6K plays that, Vegas is a little chalky for 6K, but Emiliano Grillo I think should set up pretty well for here. So there's a look at some of the lineups, or at least lineup ideas that I've been working through this week for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Callum Tarren is rating out pretty decent. Let's take a look at Callum Tarren. Callum Tarren generally plays better when it's difficult. Analytically, 41st. He's getting hurt by the fact he has not played this tournament. Let's see. Off the tee, strong. He's also second in distance. Okay. Proximity is hurt a little bit. He's a grinder. You might be onto something there, P. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I'm a little concerned with the par 5s because you have to score on them. But otherwise, yeah, okay. I can see it. Absolutely. Again, we just don't know if he's going to gravitate to this course or not because he's never played it. But it seems like it should fit for him. Off the tee. The approach has also been 38th. Bogey avoidance. Good shout there, P. I like that. I do. I like that. Callum Tarren. So yeah, I mean, if you're not comfortable with Grillo, never having played there can't be soft. I mean, yeah, I agree. So I mean, if you're not with Grillo, Callum Tarren's the same exact price. He looks like he's a slightly bit more popular than Grillo, but nothing to the extent of like a Hayden Buckley 10%. Yeah, I like that. I like that quite a bit. But I think that is, unless anybody else has a quick question or a shout or anything like that, that is going to do it for the DFS Tactics show for the Waste Management. P and Joey, thanks for jumping in chat. Always appreciate it. Good shout there, P, on Callum Tarren. I love what I do. Being able to go deep into analytics, especially for golf, and win some money in the process. So thanks for tuning in, watching, supporting the channel, liking the videos, commenting, subscribing, and let me know during the weekend how your lineups are doing, how your wagers are doing, because I'm going to have a pretty big betting card, and I'll be putting that out on Twitter after the show this evening. So give me a follow if you want to see that, and in the comments, let me know how your weekend is going. And then lastly, before I forget, Friday night will be another Friday night chill stream. It'll be a pure weekend golf look at the Waste Management. It's going to be right up my alley. My preferred way of playing weekend golf. One course. Both rounds have shot link, so we'll be able to analyze what's gone on so far on the course, who's underperformed, overperformed, all that good stuff. So I'm looking forward to getting back into a solid weekend golf rotation, and that'll start this Friday night for the Waste Management. So for all of the wagers that you've made this week for the Waste Management Phoenix Open, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the Waste Management Phoenix Open, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.